Why should you consider teaching English in Vietnam for a year? In this video, I want to talk about why I think it can be a great idea to come teach English in Vietnam for a year and then potentially longer. As you may know if you've watched this channel or followed Ninja Teacher for some time, we're based in Vietnam, and I'm going to talk about Vietnam specifically as a country to come teach English in for 1 year. But most of this video will also apply to other countries where you can go teach English in. I personally started teaching English in South Korea originally, so you can actually start in many different countries, and there's no right or wrong answer to which country you decide to start teaching in. So let's get into the reasons. The first reason is that teaching English in Vietnam is a job that you can get into very quickly. While there's a big barrier to entry to get into a lot of different careers, like a 4-year college degree, for example, teaching English, TEFL stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language specifically, in many countries only requires a bachelor's degree in any subject, not teaching specific, so it can be in absolutely any subject as long as it's a bachelor's degree, plus a TEFL certification will allow you to teach English in that country, and many schools will consider hiring a first-time English teacher that hasn't had previous experience. So what that means is if you have a bachelor's degree already in another subject, then all you need to do is take a TEFL certification, and this you can do either online or in person. And a TEFL certification is typically 120 to 150 hours, sometimes a bit more, but that's the standard. And with that number of hours, you can actually complete that TEFL certification within a month or two. For example, if you took your TEFL certification fully in person, there are often 4-week in-person teacher training courses that get you TEFL certified. For example, here at the Ninja Teacher TEFL Academy, we have the 4-week in-person TEFL training course, which happens right here. So you can get your TEFL certification in 4 weeks. Or alternatively, you could do it online while you're still at home. We also offer an online TEFL certification, and most people complete that in about a month to maybe 3 months if you're doing it part-time, but you can do it in a month or two. And then it's also possible to get work very quickly after getting your TEFL certification. For example, we assist people with securing jobs within 30 days after the TEFL course is completed, and sometimes it can be even shorter than that. So in total, it can take 60 days or less to get your TEFL certification and get a job. So why do I mention that? Well, because that timeline is very achievable for many people. Maybe you've just found out about teaching English and you know you're going to have a period of time where you're not working or your contract's ending with your current job. So knowing that you can get started relatively quickly means that you can actually plan for this to happen. You know, you're not looking at a plan in 3 to 4 years after completing a bachelor's degree that you don't even know that you can follow through on. You can actually start planning right now and be teaching within a few months, which is pretty incredible, and that just makes it that much easier to go ahead and commit to doing a year abroad. Because if you do find yourself at a time in your life where you don't have anything planned in the immediate future, then you can decide to do this and get started within a relatively short time frame. So once you know that you're going to be available and that you can actually get started quite quickly, then why would you want to do a year specifically? Well, one practical reason is that the contracts are very often 1-year-long contracts. And we do get people asking us, can I do a 3-month contract or a 6-month contract? Those are very rare and uncommon to hear about here. And I think one of the big reasons for that is that you have to submit all of your documentation to get the proper work permit and temporary resident card. That's all the legal paperwork that you have to do to actually legally be able to teach in Vietnam. And that takes a couple of months just for your school to process. So most schools want to see a commitment of up to a year so that they can process your paperwork, get you the correct visa, and that you'll actually stay for about a year. Other than all the red tape taking time, you take time too to adjust to a new country. So we've helped over 1,000 people start teaching English in Vietnam at this point, and over 100 people per year. And as confident a person as you are, as much as you've traveled, settling into a new country takes time, because when you arrive in a new country to live there, it can be very different from just traveling for a vacation. You're actually moving your life to live in that country, at least for a period of time. There may be some culture shock in the beginning, and you may experience homesickness. Things might be overwhelming at first. There's a lot to take in and process, and in the first couple of months, it can be really exciting, but it can also be quite stressful. So I think once you pass a certain point, then you can actually really get settled in and enjoy yourself. And I think maybe 3 months in is a point where you start to feel like, okay, I'm actually living here. Now I'm getting a bit more settled in. Usually at that point, you've got a job, you've got your apartment, you're starting to get used to living in the country. And while that honeymoon phase of, wow, everything is exciting and amazing has maybe worn off a bit, you get to experience what it feels like to actually live in a country and get settled in, start to make friends, get used to the job, all of these kinds of things. So I think it really just takes a bit of time to really get settled in. And as I mentioned, not that the beginning is not enjoyable. In fact, it's actually really exciting for a lot of people when they first get here. But after you're settled, that's also when you have a lot of the amazing experiences that you get from living in a new country. Now, the reason I wanted to specifically say plan to come out for a year is because that's what many people tell me that they do. They decide that they're going to come out for a year to see how they like it, to see if it's the right fit for them. So a lot of our trainees say, okay, I'm going to come for a year and then I'm going to see. And in many cases, people really like it and they decide they want to stay for a second year or maybe even longer than that. But I think a year is a good amount of time that you can take that out of your life, whatever you're doing. And if you decide it's not for you, or if you just want to do it for a year, then you can always go back to what you were doing before. On our programs, we help people put together their resumes and then send them out to schools to help them find jobs after they've completed the TEFL training. And so I've seen a lot of CVs and lots of people also applying for jobs at Ninja Teacher. So I've seen many CVs over the years. And on a CV or resume, people have lots of different jobs over their careers. It's very rare that someone sticks to one thing for their entire life. And I think some people get very worried about the idea of going to another country and having a gap on their resume. And I see people that have come to Vietnam, had a great experience, and then go back and return to exactly what they were doing before, or start a new career. You can absolutely go back to what you were doing before, if that's what you want to do. And in fact, depending on what you're doing before, in most cases, having teaching on your resume is a great thing because it shows communication skills. It shows that you've developed interpersonal skills. There are a lot of transferable skills that you get from teaching. So actually having teaching on your resume can be a great strength for future job opportunities. So that's one of the things I wanted to highlight about why doing it for 1 year can be a great choice, because it's not this huge commitment for the rest of your life. It really is something that you can do, enjoy for a year, and then take it from there. And whatever you decide after that, you can always go back to what you're doing and you'll have all the experiences that you accumulated during your time living and teaching abroad. So another big one is, for many people, a big benefit of teaching abroad is the opportunity to travel while you're teaching abroad. And one of the great things about Vietnam is it's so centrally located in Southeast Asia that you can actually do a lot of travel from Vietnam to different countries during your vacations. Not to mention all the travel that you can do within Vietnam. Earlier this year, my parents came out for a trip and we spent 2 weeks traveling around Vietnam, and it was an amazing trip. We went up to Hanoi, Halong Bay, Hue, Da Nang, and Hoi An, as well as here in Ho Chi Minh City, and had an amazing time with them. They really enjoyed their experiences in Vietnam. But in 2 weeks, that was a lot to try and see. And that's only 4 or 5 cities in Vietnam that we got to see for a couple of days each. There's so much to do and see in Vietnam alone that if you like traveling, you'll want to spend as much time as you can going to different places throughout Vietnam. And living here for an extended period of time allows you to take trips to all these different places throughout Vietnam, as well as to nearby countries. For example, we've got a few days off now between our TEFL courses, and I'm just going to go up to Da Nang to spend a few days there. I booked a flight up there for about 3 million round trip, which is just over $100 US, and there's really affordable accommodation, great affordable food as well. So a really affordable trip up to central Vietnam for a few days, and you can do that same kind of thing throughout your time when you've got a few days off. When you take leave from your job, you can travel around. And if you live here in Ho Chi Minh City, you can take the bus down to the coast in 2 or 3 hours. You can take the bus to the central highlands, to Da Lat, which is really beautiful. And while a vacation to Vietnam is obviously going to be a great time, there's only so much that you can see in a couple of weeks if that's how long you come out here. Versus if you're living here for a year, you can really go out and explore, make the most of your free time to explore the whole of Vietnam. You can take trips over to nearby countries like Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia. There's so many countries that are within a short flight away. And in fact, some of the flights to those countries are around the same price as the domestic flights in Vietnam. So you can use Vietnam as a base to explore Southeast Asia, which for travel lovers or someone who wants to travel and has not done a lot of travel in their life, this can be an amazing opportunity for that. And then another thing is the actual teaching and getting a sense of if you like teaching. Because as I mentioned, if you want to become a teacher in another country, you typically have to do a 3 or 4 year bachelor's degree, get a teaching license to be able to teach in schools. But TEFL has the benefit of being able to get started quickly so that you can actually get a sense of if you like teaching. So many people don't know if they are going to enjoy teaching, and they want to have an opportunity to try it out and see if they do, to see if they want to carry on in a career in education. It's pretty interesting to see the spread of people and how they enjoy teaching, because obviously we see a lot of people coming through the programs, and I think in a lot of cases people don't know if they're going to like it or not. And then after the course, and also once they've started teaching for a while, they get a better sense of how much they like it. And from speaking to our graduates, I'd say there's a spread of several different opinions about it. On the one end of the spectrum, we get experienced, well-qualified teachers who actually join our program, because we include a lot of things in the program that even experienced teachers can benefit from, like the support with moving to Vietnam, the network we have with schools to actually help people find jobs, the community, the training, all of that. Actually, quite often we get experienced teachers joining our program. So for them, they already know that teaching is something that they've enjoyed doing and they want to continue doing it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's some people that realize that teaching isn't for them and it's not something that they want to do for the long term. And that's totally fine too. And because you've just come out for a year, you don't have to continue doing teaching after that if you decide it's not for you. And then I think there's quite a lot of people who quite enjoy teaching and they're quite happy to do it as a job for however long it is that they decide to stay abroad. And maybe it's something that they enjoy enough that they want to do it for a year or 2 years or 3 years, but maybe not forever. And I think that's totally fine. I personally think that you can be a good teacher, because I do think that's important. You need to be a good teacher for the students without wanting it to be what you do for the rest of your life. And as long as you do a good job and you like it enough, then there's no reason why you shouldn't continue doing it for as long as you want to and as long as you're enjoying it. So if your primary reason is just to come out so that you can see Vietnam, so that you can explore Asia for a couple of years, and as long as you take the job seriously, I think that's perfectly fine. I think it's something that many people do, and many people don't see it as their passion and something they want to do for the rest of their lives, and that's totally fine. But I will say, and I think I speak for the whole team at Ninja Teacher, it's really rewarding when we get someone coming through the program who doesn't know if they were going to like teaching or not, and then decide they love it and go on to be a teacher and continue doing it over the long run. And there's different opportunities for career advancements down the line if you want to stay in teaching. So we really like to see that when it happens. And then I think a year gives you a good amount of time to experience a country that you're living in. And if you're coming to Vietnam, there is a lot to experience. The culture, the food, the places, the city that you live in. To be honest, you could stay here for a year and only really scratch the surface of all of that. But I think a year in the country gives you a good amount of time to experience all of that. I've mentioned this before, but there's a lot more to Vietnamese cuisine than pho and banh mi. So if you like Vietnamese food and you want to explore all the cuisine here, there's a huge amount to try. And you can basically try a new dish every day for a year, and you probably wouldn't get through all the different Vietnamese foods they have here. Even just coming to a city like Ho Chi Minh City, which is a population of about 10 million people, there's so much to do and see within the city itself that if you choose to stay and teach English in Ho Chi Minh City, you can do a lot of really fun and interesting things during your time here. There's great nightlife. There's a good cafe scene, lots of things to see and do here. And there's a good ratio of what you earn as an English teacher in Vietnam to the cost of living in Vietnam. you can download a copy of our free Teaching English in Vietnam salary versus living costs guide to get a better sense of that. But I think it's safe to say that as long as you're not spending like crazy, you can live really comfortably here and experience all the best things that Vietnam has to offer. And coming out for a year really gives you the time to do that and see if you want to stay longer in Vietnam or potentially even take your teaching career to another country and spend another year in a different country so that you can actually do the same thing somewhere else in the world, because there are a lot of opportunities to teach English in different countries throughout the world. So Vietnam could be the first step on your journey, or you could teach English in Vietnam for a year and decide you really like it and you want to do another year or several more years. Or you could just stick to the 1 year and you'll have had all of these amazing experiences in Vietnam, and then you can go back home and then carry on with whatever it is else that you would like to do. With all of these memories, having seen new places, tried new things, met new people, and had a really rewarding experience. So that's it from me for this video. Stay tuned for more videos about teaching English and life in Vietnam, and I'll speak to you soon. Peace.